Hi guys, I'm Nicolle Leanne with Holistic Vitality Energy Healing. I'm also the host of the Inner Healing Circle on Facebook, which is a group for like-minded individuals that are seeking their growth through healing, self-discovery, and enlightenment, among other things. So, so anyways, I decided to do this video because I personally have gone through quite an interesting few months that I feel like is pretty mind-blowing and enlightening in itself, that I feel like some of the things that I got out of it would definitely benefit others to hear the story. And like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher shall show themselves. So in my case, I've always been in a teaching position role, especially when it comes to spiritual mentoring or speaking about topics such as the law of attraction or some taboo subjects of the unforeseen, spirit realms and what have you, and astrology are kind of all under my domains. That being said, a lot of, I guess, what I've been exposed to in my lifetime would probably challenge most people's belief systems as to what they've accepted as their truth and their reality. That's not necessarily what I'm here to do, more so as I am here just to share my story. So, and if that you find something that you can take from it and use from it, then great. So this last few months, all surrounding the eclipse is a few months ago. I've kind of had quite the interesting journey. Now again, I've played the healer role just as much as I've played the teacher role with my clients and people that I've been exposed to in my life due to my own growth and journey. And I also personally, have had to undergo my own trials and tribulations of self-healing and self-discovery to even be in that position where I could help others. Naturally so. How can you teach something you don't know much about, right? That's not to say that some things have still lingered. For example, personally, I've had a lot of struggles in my relationship with my own mother, which is something I've had a hard time with, trying to navigate those waters, because she's, she's a smart, intellectual woman, what have you. She has her own gifts, but in this case, she's also very negative, and pessimistic, and she's kind of been that way as long as I can remember. And she is the type that would project her issues onto you and take jabs at you, and I know a lot of that stems from the fact that she's never healed from her past, as far as her emotional and mental baggage that she's carried around with her. So of course, as her daughter, I see that, but also with the healing work that I've come into, I see that as well. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to drag her in by her hair into my office and say, okay, I'm going to sit you down and we're going to sort through this, because that is actually kind of, that is what I go after with my clients and see success with. But unfortunately, especially when it comes to loved ones, there is often that bias that we have to deal with, and the fact that I'm her daughter, of course she's not seeking that help from her daughter, right? So it's kind of one of those things I've kind of had to make peace with, even though part of what it is that I do is partly because I want to be able to help her, right? Funny enough. And of course she's denied all that type of help. And so there's nothing you can really do if somebody's not willing to receive that type of help. So again, I've also had to kind of let that one go with her, but it doesn't mean that our current relationship therefore doesn't suffer, because she's not willing to do her own inner healing, and therefore takes that kind of out on me and my sister. And so that's been kind of a struggle for us. Not to mention she also has Lyme's disease, so that's been another monster of its own. And technically speaking, we're really all she has, since we were born and raised in South Africa. And she's lost both her mom and her father in recent years. And so essentially, technically speaking, my sister and myself have been her only support system, but it's kind of hard to be a support system to somebody who is pushing you away. So anyways, that's a little bit about the personal struggle that I know has been one of my obstacles in my path, because it's not necessarily something that I can heal within myself fully when it involves someone else's stuff that you care about and want to see their growth so it can help you in a way, right? There's kind of a little bit of a selfish motivation to that. But regardless, these last few months have been very enlightening, touching upon that dynamic, because that's kind of what I was searching for, is the answers to how might I solve this. And now I've had some interesting experiences precluding that as well, such as I got introduced probably like, I'd want to say like 4.5 months ago, I want to say, I got introduced to my spirit animal guide. I guess I hadn't really been looking prior to that to know who my spirit animal guide was until it started showing up in videos I was watching and books I was reading and just different conversations. It was one of those kind of like aha moments. I'm like, oh, I guess I've never tried to figure out who I guess my spirit animal guide is, even though I am aware of several of my guides that work in tandem with me on the work that I do in this journey, I guess, called life in this three-dimensional realm. So that was interesting. I did the glass for that with my sister. Actually, sorry, I first was trying to meditate on that, and for whatever reason I was blocked and could not get who it was or what it was coming through. I guess I was blocking it. And so of course I was a little frustrated. But anyways, we did the glass, me and my sister did, which is basically a modality that I was taught when I was 13, which is a tool to connect to the other side and communicate with the other realms, so spirit realm. I was introduced to it by my grandmother and my mother, and we would use it at the time to communicate with my great-grandmother. Of course, now my grandmother's passed, so I could communicate with her on that level, or in these cases, any deceased friends or people close to my circle of friends we would communicate with, or now in this case also my guides. So I learned that Tori the toad was one of my spirit animals that came through right away. I think the fact that I was actually seeking those answers out, I just wasn't receptive to hearing or getting the answer. So interestingly enough, Tori had some messages for me. One of them was a baby would be on its way. And so that was about 4.5 months ago. And of course I was rejecting that at the time. I was like, no, I'm not ready for kids. I got all these big things on my agenda that I want to attract first, right? So anyways, I guess you can't control certain things, and anyhow, I am pregnant. So news to the world, I guess this is that first step, that I am gonna be a mom. And I found out about a month and a half ago, so I'm about I would say 9, I think I'm about 9-10 weeks along right now. But a lot of predating me finding out that information, so again, a lot of this growth was before I even knew I was going to be a mom, I guess in hindsight was essentially because I wanted to clean up my stuff, knowing that I eventually wanted to have kids, and I didn't want to pass on any negative juju stuff to my kids, because as they say, shit trickles downhill, so whatever you got passed on from your parents oftentimes gets carried down somehow and affects the next generation. And so that was the last thing I wanted because of mommy issues. So anyways, there came this point. So now Tori got that and kind of shunned it. didn't think anything of it for a little while. And so I'd say it was about, I want to say 3 months ago, I guesstimating again. There's been a lot going on in the last couple of months. And yeah, I'd want to say 3 months ago, sounds about right. And 3.5, I don't know. So I kind of decided to do, first of all, a kind of like a cord cutting meditation, because I was like, I just need to do something so my mom's toxic effects don't affect me. I was like, I don't have this problem with any of my clients of their energy just completely debilitating me, right? So I was like, I just need to clean up whatever's going on, whatever is this toxic relationship between me and my mother. And this crazy vision came to me first, where she was this angry lion and I was this rhinoceros in this, I guess, jungle type environment, safari, I guess, environment. And the energy exchange that was kind of going on in this vision was, she was angry, first of all, that I would even try to cut the cord, because it was kind of like, how dare you even attempt to do that, because you owe me your life. I gave you life to even live in this environment, and it's the natural order that you sacrifice your life to me because I'm essentially like the king of this jungle, right? It was kind of like that, angry, like she was out for blood, wanting to take my life, essentially. And then my energy was kind of like in defense of that. It was kind of like, you don't want to do this, you don't want to go there, I don't want to have to hurt you, so please just drop this. We can coexist in the same jungle. You go your way, I go my way. It doesn't have to be like this, right? So anyways, I came out of this vision and was just kind of like flabbergasted a little bit. I was like, oh my God, what the hell, you know? But it made sense in a weird way too, because I was like, yeah, my mom has that energy about her. It's kind of like she's always made me and my sister, I feel guilty for living our own lives, yet she's refused to live her own life. You know, she's always been the provider. She's a really smart woman. She was a piping engineer. You know, put food on the table, provided. You know, for the most part was single mom, even with her different marriages or whatever. So for that, I respect that about her. But yes, she's just kind of made us feel guilty anytime, like if we wanted to go on vacation or do anything like that, it would be like, oh, I wish I could do that. It's like, well, you make the money to, why don't you? You know, so she's kind of like withheld living her own life and then made us feel guilty for ours. And so I've noticed that's kind of transcended even into me, where I feel guilty unless I'm being productive, unless I'm doing something. And therefore I self-sacrifice my fun a lot and give that up. And that's something that I want to change within myself, is because, you know, I look at her and she's definitely the role model as to what I don't want my life to turn out to be, where now I'm bedridden and, with a disease that I can't even do anything to live my life anymore, because I've made all these excuses why I couldn't beforehand. Anyway, so anyways, had that vision, and it kind of was disturbing in a way, but I was still kind of like, okay, what do I do about this? Because obviously that cord cutting didn't go according to plan. She was very angry. And then, okay, so then following that, I ended up doing my first ayahuasca experience, which, mind-blowing, life-changing experience. I'll probably just talk about certain portions of it and go more in detail in probably another video for those that are interested in learning more about what, I guess, my experience with that was. But basically, ayahuasca is a plant that is, I believe, just found mostly in the Peruvian jungle, and it is said to have all the answers to the universe. What can be expected with the ayahuasca is that you will purge, so you throw up. But whatever you get rid of, it's kind of like you collectively help everybody that's in the room with you get rid of it as well, who is partaking in that same ceremony. So yeah, that was a really incredible, incredible experience. And if ayahuasca ever crosses your path, definitely I'd say look into it. Yeah, I'd highly recommend checking it out. But you know, research and look it up and make sure it's something you feel comfortable with. But it's definitely a life-changing, eye-opening, mind-blowing experience. It's all natural. It's not it's not tweaked by man at all. It's just the plant kind of put into this tea type form. I wouldn't even say tea, or at least it was like this mushy, it was almost like taking a greens drink. So the taste was meh, well, it was okay. Not the greatest taste. But my experience, which again was a couple months ago, and again it came across, or fell in my lap through somebody that was telling me about it. And of course I'm one that believes highly in synchronicity and don't overlook any things that come across my way. And so I knew my sister really wanted to try ayahuasca. She was wanting to go all the way to Peru to do it. And anyways, when it came across my attention, I, you know, looked into it to the point where then I decided, you know what, I'm going to just try it out. Whatever. What do you got to lose? Especially if it's supposed to have this spiritual shamanic experience, which, okay, I'm all about. Not that I'm into, you know, trying a bunch of what, you know, hallucinogenics or psychedelics or whatever. That's not necessarily my thing, or that I've really been experimentative with in my life. But this was something I guess I did open myself up to trying. And I'll go into more details of how it was laid out and how the experience came about, but you kind of set your intentions when you show up. So of course, since the mom stuff was pretty fresh, I kind of went into it with the intention of I wanted more answers to understand that situation of what I could do to fix it. And then of course, a lot of it too was getting whatever information I could that could help me as a healer. And so in the beginning, with the first dose we took, the imagery that I had was like a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes, and the message that came to me through that first part, which was very visual and sensory, was that these were healing codes. And of course I was like laying there with my eyes closed, and my hands were between my legs, and I was just kind of laying there, and it was telling me, it was giving me this download into my hands for healing. So, because I do hands-on healing, so I was kind of like, whoa, that's really awesome, you know, so I felt my hands getting like really hot, like this vibration all around them, and I was super excited. I was like, how incredible is this? But now keep in mind, ayahuasca does show you the not so good things that you need to work through, or that you have to get rid of. So I guess part of my purging experience was to get rid of, apparently it was illness and disease, because then that imagery started shape-shifting into kind of like cartoon-looking parasites and bugs, essentially. And I, of course, was resistant to the idea of wanting to throw up. Like, I went in there thinking like, oh, I'm not going to throw up. I'm going to force myself not to. But of course, when this visual and the sensations came up, I was like, I have to get rid of it. Oh my God. Like, and of course, got rid of it. I threw it up. And the messaging I got from that kind of was that I had energetically taken on some of that disease and illness from my mother, so that connection to her, because having some of the poor boundaries there, which the boundary thing was a little bit more elaborated in another experience unrelated to this, which I'll elaborate further when I get to that part. And so anyways, I guess energetically I was kind of taking on some of that energy from her, and I actually symptomatically was feeling some of her symptoms prior to this experience, where I was feeling just so chronically fatigued, like I felt like I was off, like I felt like I wasn't that healthy. And even though I was trying to do everything I could to be healthy and keep my energy high, because I was serving my clients with that, but something was off. And anyway, so when I got rid of that, it was like feeling like I got rid of disease and illness because of how clear I felt afterwards. I was like, wow, like I had no idea that this was lingering in me because it wasn't even my, you know, disease, you know, but I was feeling it, especially after I got rid of it. And then part of the other thing that I was purging, I guess, was sadness. Because the second dose was a little bit more sensational for me. And then hearing, it was less visual as much as was feeling everything. And it was like sorrow and sadness. And I remember just crying and weeping like for a very long time. I haven't cried that long in a very long time. And you should have seen my eyes the next morning. They were super puffy because I cried a lot. But a lot of that was me purging the sadness of first of all, it kind of tapped into my mom again, sadness of my mother, and learned that somehow her role of what she took on in this lifetime was to carry all that pain and suffering, kind of, so that me and my sister didn't have to. So that was kind of what it was showing me in a way. Yet we kind of abandoned her or neglected her with that and didn't take any of that back with us. Like, I kind of like, well, that's your problem, not ours, you know. And so she was like kind of left carrying all of that, apparently. And a lot of that energy too was, and that's something me and my sister, I think, have both felt in our upbringing, is that we didn't know how to feel her, my mother's love, because again, she was much more the intellectualist, the provider role, and more masculine in that sense, you know, and so we felt that we got shortchanged kind of that nurturance and that love that we wanted to feel so badly from, you know, a mother figure, what you would expect to want to feel. And so that's what's something we've both craved a lot of from her and never quite received, or I guess knew how to receive from her, nor but perhaps that she knew how to give it. But needless to say, you know, it obviously hurt us in our development, not receiving those things being met. And so a lot of that messaging kind of got revisited in this experience where it was saying like, you know, your mother's done nothing but provide, but you can't feel her love, da 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 da. But what was crazy is then it kind of morphed into not just being my relationship to mom, but humans or mankind's relationship to Mother Earth, like on a bigger picture. It was kind of like showing us that, you know, as a people, as mankind, you know, and we've been part of the problem. And of course, me and my sister, we've been part of the reason of why my mom has carried so much pain and hurt, right? Because she's also the type that kind of, she's the type that would bail you out and take on your problems or make your problems hers, but not because you're trying to give your problems to her. She kind of does that, but then uses it as a tool as like a martyr, you know, to hold it against you later. So it's kind of dysfunctional in that sense. But at the same time, in that relationship to Mother Earth, like Mother Earth has done nothing but provide for mankind through shelter, through food, through oxygen, through water, giving you all your needs, to meet all of our needs collectively. And we've done nothing but take, and destroy. And she's suffering, and she's weeping, and she's crying for help. And we have all, as a mankind collectively, ignored that cry for help. And that's essentially our, you know, primordial mother that we have kind of all neglected, who again has done nothing but provide for us, yet we still complain that we can't feel that love, right? So that was kind of this crazy experiential learning and feeling and understanding it on this deep level. So anyways, you know, I learned so much from this experience and got to tap into so many cool different things, but I'm going to leave it at that. But let's just say after this experience, me and my sister were like, oh, we got all the answers, you know, we're just going to be there for her more, you know, we're going to show up, we're going to help take care of her more, tell her we understand and that we love her and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, so we show up and we're just like this, because at the end of the ayahuasca experience, you just feel so much, you feel so filled with like love and gratitude. I mean, it's just, I mean, you go through your crap, don't get me wrong, on your little private journey, but you feel so much love. Oh my God. Never have I felt such that feeling like that. It was beautiful. And it lasted for days after, and I can still recall that feeling. And it was amazing. But anyways, we come in with this ball of energy to our mom, and we're like, yes, love. We're going to show you this love, and we understand, and we're going to be there. Anyways, she was taken off guard, and, you know, was kind of, whoa, what just happened? And, you know, at first, but we're like, okay, well, we're going to see you next weekend so we can catch up and tell you all the details, because, of course, when we saw her was after we spent all night staying up doing this experience, and, you know, hadn't slept like more than an hour's time, and my eyes are puffy, and I think my sister had to go to work or whatever. And anyways, so then we see her next week, the following weekend, and I guess that's where the assumption got skewed, is that just because we were changing how we look at things didn't mean my mom was doing the growth herself. So she still wasn't planning to change. She still wasn't planning to change how she interacted with us just because we were trying to change to interact with her differently. And of course, there was the big butting of heads that night, and to the point where me and my sister were like, okay, we can't be around you for some time. And so we didn't talk to her for quite a few weeks, just because it was just like, oh my God, like, this is just too much. Without going into too much detail, but again, take my word for it. And anyway, so again, I was back to square one of like, oh, what do I do? You know, I thought I would get I got all these answers that were going to solve this relationship and could hopefully help us salvage what we never had in this relationship or whatever. And so anyways, I went to bed a few nights later after that altercation with her. And I remember kind of trying to put the energy out there to my guides and just like, hey, I was like, I need some guidance. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this situation. Please show me like what it is I need to know in order to fix this. And interestingly enough, several days later, I get this random phone call from an unknown number. And how this person got my number, still beyond me. But, so anyways, it's this guy who's supposedly calling from London. So, you know, and I answer the call. It's like later in the evening. And he tells me, he's like, you recently put out a very strong, energetic call for guidance. Is that true? And I was like, okay. I was like, I guess, yeah. And he's like, well, let me tell you a little bit about me. So he says, okay, he was raised in, or he was born in London, but then he was relocated to India, I believe at the age of 3 is what he said. And his name's Raghu, by the way, or his Indian name is Raghu. And I think his English name is like Roger or something like that. But anyways, so he's like, let's just say from the age of 3, I've been meditating. I'm 59 years old right now. So let's just say I've been meditating a very long time. And spiritually speaking, I'm quite established. And anyways, I just want to let you know how rare this phone call is. But you put out a very strong signal, which what that tells me, he said, that you have a very strong energy about you that you have been working on for a very long time, because there would have been no way that I would have picked up your signal had that not been the case. He said, I'm also picking up on you is that you're very strong with manifesting. So I was like, yeah, I would say that's true, you know, just with my experience, I am very good at manifesting my reality based on my desires, because I've been practicing the law of attraction for more than a decade, and And of course, working on my energy. That's something that I have done for a very long time as well. So I was like, okay, yeah, keep going. And he's just like, well, you put a strong signal out and it seems to have a lot to do with your mother. And I was like, what? And I was like, who is this person? How the hell does he know all this, right? So I kept going with it. I was like, yeah, that's true. And he's just like, well, let's start off with this. He's like, you have no boundaries with your mom. You never learned how to have boundaries with your mom because she never let you have boundaries. So of course then my mind went to every time I remember getting into a fight with her about smoking cigarettes around me because it just made me feel so sick. And she was the kind of person who was like, my house, my rules, I'm the mom, So she would always justify her actions regardless of how it was affecting me or, my sister. So she never really honored our feelings and any of that ever. Especially when it came to her, bad habits, she would justify it. And we had to just live with it because she was our mom and her house, her rules, or her car, whatever. And so I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense, even though I guess I never realized that I had poor boundaries with her. And he's like, okay, and let me tell you something else. He's like, your guides are exasperated with you. And I was like, well, okay, why is that? And he's like, because they've been trying to get signals out to you and give you messages that you have not been paying attention to. You have not been listening to them. So, okay, what are those messages? And he's like, whoa. He's like, let's put it this way. Wouldn't you be frustrated if you were trying to tell somebody something or hint something to them and they weren't receiving you? I was like, yeah, I guess so. And he's like, well, let's just say that that's what they're feeling. And your guides can punish you, right? And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, have you ever noticed when life just kind of slaps you around and pulls the rug out from underneath you? And kind of, like shit hits the fan and feels like, what else can go wrong? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, that's their way of getting your attention. I was like, all right. And he's like, and you've had several of those times in your life, haven't you? I was like, yeah, I would say that's true. And he's like, all right. And he's like, Anna, is it not true that just about every time you see your mom or speak to your mom or you're around your mom, she essentially sucks the life out of you, where you feel immobilized or you can't think straight or you feel like you just feel drained? And I was thinking like, yeah, pretty much like. And then he's like, all right, well, your guides are using me as that last resort to get through to you, because they're saying like, what do you need? Something to fall from the sky for you to pay attention? And I was like, I guess I need that to see some validity here. But anyways, he's like, yeah, he's like, so again, this call that I'm reaching out to you through, I just want you to know how rare it is. And, which he had already established. And so anyways, he's like, because they're so exasperated and they want to get this message through to you, because they see something bad about to happen. Let me explain, he says. So this next altercation that you're going to have with your mom, where again, she sucks the life out of you, where you feel drained, where you think you can't think straight, you're going to get in your car. You're not going to be present while you're driving because you're not going to be thinking straight. You're going to be all riled up. You're going to get in a bad wreck. This is something that your guides are trying to prevent by trying to get your attention, but you have not been paying attention. And so of course, he's then like, is your life worth being taken because you can't establish these boundaries or read these signs? And I was like, no, I don't want to die, I don't want anything bad to happen to me. And he's like, all right then. And so I was like, well, what do I do about this? you know, I was like, I don't know what to do. I was like, I feel, you know, I was like, I can't really kick her out of my life because, you know, me and my sister's all she has. Plus she has Lyme's disease, and I'd feel guilty if I did that, even though part of me wants to have nothing to do with her because of how she makes me feel. And he's like, well, you need boundaries. And I was like, well, what does that mean with her? And he's like, it means draw the line in the sand. It means no, if that means no contact, that means no contact. If that means the first sign that she takes a jab at you or crosses your boundaries, you either walk away or drop the phone call. You do not have to sit there and take it. And so it's just like, okay. He's like, yeah, because you never learned how to have boundaries with her. And of course, something bad's going to happen. He's like, let me explain it to you this way. He said, if you were to go over to a friend's house for dinner, but then they were to punch you in the stomach afterwards, would you still keep going over for dinner? And I was like, well, I guess not. And he's like, okay, well then why do you keep going back over if your mom is literally energetically stabbing you in the gut every time you see her or speak to her? And I was just like, huh, I guess I never thought of it like that. And he's like, and didn't we just establish that it's pretty much every single time that you see her or speak to her that you feel this way? I was like, yes. Okay then, well then what makes you think that this next time is going to be any different? And I was like, holy crap, you know, he's right. There is kind of that underlying hope that I feel like I was holding on to, hoping that if I changed something or if I healed something about me, that perhaps that would change the relationship somehow, or, you know, we could salvage that relationship or turn it into something better than it was, and holding on to that false hope. And he's here telling me, what makes you think it's going to be any different if it's never been any different? And it's always been where she takes the jabs, where she crosses your boundaries, where she takes little stabs at you. And then I'm there left feeling like I'm energetically bleeding every time I see her or speak to her. And so that was pretty eye-opening conversation. Now he went into a lot of other things as well that I needed to apparently work on. But the other thing he highlighted was like, look, he's like I said, you're very powerful when it comes to, you know, your healings and your energy healing. You've definitely put a lot of work and growth into that. Otherwise, like I said, I wouldn't have picked up on your signal. Secondly, like I said, you are powerful when it comes to manifesting. Incredibly so. But he's like, where you and your sister have both been kind of screwed up by your mom is emotionally and psychologically. He's like, you never learned how to heal yourself emotionally and psychologically because you were never given a chance to. Because why? Because every time you went back to see her or speak to her, she re-wounded you every single time. So every time you tried to make progress on healing your own wounds, she created new ones. So anyways, I found this to be quite inspirational because, like I said, I've also been the teacher. I've also been the student. And I assume I'm going to continue to be both on my journey in this lifetime. And I'll be humbled to do so. And because I see the value in this experience, is what I learned and had this crazy phone call answering my energetic call for guidance. I find it to be a useful story to share to those of you out there that perhaps are going through the same thing with other loved ones, that you don't know how to leave, you don't know how to walk away, you don't know how to have boundaries, and you somehow want the dynamics to change between you, and it never does. And so again, you're found in this perpetual situation where you feel guilty, so you stay interacting with this relationship. And one of the other things he pointed out was, he's like, you know, you don't live with her anymore, right? She's not taking care of you, so you don't owe her anything in that sort of avenue. And he's like, plus he's like, what mother would want to kill her child? Because energetically, that is what she is doing. And if you were literally defending yourself against her, if she really had the real knife, would you let her stab you? Or would you defend yourself? Because energetically, you are not defending yourself against her. You are taking the jab. So ask yourself that in your relationships. Are you doing the same with some of the people in your life? And what are you going to do about it? Has it ever changed? Has it always been the same? If so, what exceptions can you make? What boundaries can you make that honors you? So for me, the new boundaries I made, and I even communicated them to my mother, and it's just like, you know what? I don't need to put up with this kind of treatment, and the next time you take your first jab at me, or you cross my boundaries where you do not honor my boundaries, I will walk away. I will hang up the phone if I'm on the phone with you. I will not allow this kind of treatment ever again. I honor myself more than to take that kind of treatment from you. And even though you're my mother, that doesn't mean I need to give up my life for this person, right? And so hopefully that's some words of inspiration for you guys if this is the situation that you find yourselves in. There are so many, I guess, other tidbits and things that I feel like I've learned from this crazy last couple of months of these sort of situations, and that's why it's taken me quite some time to even put this video out, because I have been kind of just mind blown and just kind of seeing what's coming in, because it felt like it was non-stop coming in, and so I didn't have a chance to even reflect or talk about the first thing before the next thing was already happening. So then I was like, okay. So anyways, finally got to do this video. I know it's a few months after the fact of when these actually took place, but again, I find the message in them to be very valuable, and what I got out of it, what I learned from it, and to pay attention to the signs that you get, because the universe or even your guides might be communicating with you. You just might not be receptive to receiving them, and that's not to say somebody's going to call you out of the blue and is going to give you this crazy advice. I mean, this is the first time it's ever happened to me, and I guess I've been searching for this kind of thing, I guess, my whole life, right? So I'm blessed, I guess, to have somebody just be so blunt with me, and that's something he even said. He's like, this is probably the first time somebody's ever going to be this blunt with you. So that was kind of interesting to get a taste of my own medicine, because usually I'm not with other people. Not so harshly so, but I do share a lot of information. And, yeah, what else do I have to say to that? Oh, yeah, so if you have those moments of synchronicity, you know, keep in mind that you might have your messages show up to you through somebody you meet who, in a conversation, something that they say might inspire you, or might address or bring up a topic that seems to resonate with something that you've been searching for, whether you've known the question or not. It may come in a book that you pick up. It might show up as signs in a song that you just listened to. So again, these are how those synchronistic signs show up most of the time. Most of us are more blind to receiving them. So I guess I needed something to hit me over the head and fall from the sky and call me from London to get the message. But I always have to say that yeah, I'm glad I got to have that experience and to share it with anybody else that I think needs to hear that similar message. Now again, maybe I'll go into detail about some of the other things he said in another video or talk or post or whatever, but since this one was kind of a lot more had to do with the mom issues, I think that that's kind of what I wanted to touch upon and what I learned from that and seeking the answers. Like I said, when the student is ready, the teacher will show themselves. So anyways, namaste. Hope you guys have a great day.